Welcome to another Vista interview. This is Sofia McCrae. She finished her year of service at St. Mark's St. John's Episcopal Church. She worked with their urban farming program, which is called E.D.E.N, which stands for Everyday Eating Naturally. Sofia, how did you decide to become a Vista?
Well, I graduated from the U of R in May of 2019, and for about 2 or 3 years of my undergrad, I spent a lot of time doing community engaged work. That's how I got involved in the urban ag movement in Rochester, which is a pretty wonderful and interconnected community. Food justice was my passion, urban agriculture was my passion, working in the community in which I grew up and now went to school was my passion. And so Rochester Youth Year was kind of this perfect beacon of allowing me to do everything that I loved doing as an undergrad full time instead of, adjacent to being a student. As I sort of wanted to explore my niche in the food justice movement, it made sense to me that I would start in the ground in my own community, which of course was urban ag. And St. Mark's and St. John's was just a really natural fit. I remember on match day, I tried to make a beeline right to Julie and Cindy's table. I was cut off, so they were like my 8th interview or something. But immediately we clicked and we were laughing and we were having a good time and we already had ideas. And Julie was telling me about her dream of having aquaponics in the basement and our thoughts on tiny houses. And, the relationship was there. So it was just like one of those kind of moments where you knew that this was going to be a good placement for you. And of course we matched, and the rest is history. But it was a really natural transition from the work that I was doing as an undergrad at the U of R to the work that I was able to do in Beechwood this year.
So what degree did you graduate with, and did that guide your steps toward your site choice?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I graduated with majors in history and environmental humanities. It is still technically a new program at the U of R. And so with my history degree, I did a lot of local history and a lot of environmental history. And with environmental humanities, as you can imagine, there's a lot of overlap. But that was the curriculum that sort of got me into food justice and sort of understanding what that was. Through research experiences or through a course with Seed Folk City Farm and the Gandhi Institute, I was sort of exposed to urban agriculture and the movement that is happening on the ground in Rochester, but also in communities around the world. I mean, it's a really global movement, which makes it a really exciting one to be a part of. And that sort of got me into the community engaged learning citation at the U of R. So even though it wasn't technically one of my majors, it was a big focal area in my undergraduate career. And it also required a 1-year capstone in which I worked with Grow Green Rochester, who work in the Swan neighborhood just across the bridge. So yes, I would say there was a lot of overlap, and there was a lot of as I said, the urban ag community is pretty small and interconnected. So sort of jumping from farm to farm. But now I am managing one of the gardens in the E.D.E.N farm, and that feels really good because I'm able to do that for a whole season rather than just sort of like working with farmers. I'm able to sort of be part of the forces that are actually growing and fostering and stewarding the land in our community.
So how did your year of service change? Because the global pandemic really took effect with the quarantine in March of 2020, and your service started in August of 2019.
Yep.
So there was some time before, and there's clearly been some time after. How did your year of service change?
Well, a lot. It changed a lot, but at the same time, working with St. Mark's and St. John's, we're a very small team. And so as a result, I was always kind of involved in a lot of the programs that we offer. I was sort of having my fingers in a lot of pots, for lack of a better term. And so we had been working on doing a lot of strategic planning and visioning and sort of thinking about long-term developments. before the pandemic. So Connected Communities, they do really wonderful work in Beechwood and Emma. And they released this report, this comprehensive neighborhood plan, basically, for the coming years in Beechwood and Emma. And it was a 2+ year project, and it involved community visioning sessions and working with local businesses and schools and neighbors and nonprofits and faith communities like us. And we were sort of using that as a guiding document to thinking about where we can fill in new niches in the community, and where we're sort of doing a lot of reflecting on where our best strengths are, like what partnerships we want to forge. We were really looking at big picture stuff. And then the pandemic hit, and we realized that we need to meet people where they're at, and we need to get food to people now. And as I said, it was, of course, it was March. Nobody's going to forget that. So it's also like kind of a coincidental start with the gardening season. So it was a really interesting time to be working in urban ag and in food pantries and emergency food services in general, because it's sort of the start of the busy season, and food pantries were suddenly, having 500% increase in demand because of food supply shortages and everything. So immediately we started doing food deliveries, which was actually, it's a program that we're hoping to continue, or St. Mark's and St. John's is hoping to continue past the pandemic, because we're reaching so many more people that can't otherwise come to our food pantry because of transportation issues or mobility issues. But in the first couple of weeks, it was basically all hands on deck, 6 days a week, food deliveries. Every time we were running low on food, miraculously, a new donation would come and we were able to continue feeding people. And I think now, let's see, it's August and we're over 1,200 deliveries since the start of the pandemic. But it was really energy intensive at first. And, we were scrambling for volunteers, we were scrambling for food, we were scrambling for cash to buy more food. And so we were just kind of like putting out the call. And the really exciting thing, the thing that was really energizing in this time, was that there were people from all over our community, all over Rochester, who wanted to participate and who wanted to help out in any way that they could. So volunteers came and food came, sometimes really in the 11th hour, but they came. and garden volunteers came as well. So now we're doing food deliveries 3 days a week instead of 6 days a week. We're talking with other food pantries, other folks who are doing food deliveries, to see where we can work together to reduce work duplication, to sort of, help support each other in the work that we're all trying to do. And when it came to the E.D.E.N garden program, as I said, it was the start of the season. It's really busy for anyone involved in urban gardens. It's cleanup time. So we have 7 gardens around the neighborhood, and 6 of them needed pretty intense, let's get out the compost, let's get out the mulch, let's shovel and let's build and repair beds. And what usually happens is we have days like the United Way Day of Caring, where we'll have 70 to 80 volunteers working with us for a day. And that, that amount of people can get a lot of things done. And of course, all of those things were canceled. So, and our captain, the head of the whole garden program, was, taking a step back because he's an elder and he does so much work. So I was there as a year 1 Vista. And, I developed a volunteer safety protocol. We realized that we basically had to do the work of all of these 80 volunteers in one day over the course of several smaller volunteer shifts, maxing out at 4 people, so that we could have socially distanced gardening. We'd have to spray everything down with sanitizer. We'd have to make sure that people have their own gloves. And we made it happen. And it over the course of the next couple of weeks, we were out there doing, 4 or 5 days a week doing garden cleanups. I've never shoveled so much before in my entire life. And yet people kept coming back, and we were making connections with new people that had never even heard of our work before. And now we're just super jazzed to be meeting us, to be meeting neighbors, to be, neighbors would come along and pick up a shovel as well. And so it was a real like groundswell of energy and bodies and time. And it was kind of a whirlwind. So
it sounds
yeah.
like it was
It was
a building experience in a couple of ways. So
yeah.
it was about stretching your skill set and growing where there was a need, and addressing with plans for the unplanned and the unexpected, as well as literally putting in the work on the ground that needed to be done. So I know vistas are usually billed as mostly indirect service, but in this case, what are you going to do when there's a global pandemic and you came to help feed people, and it requires shovels to help you feed people?
Sure. And a lot of that was also the need to totally shift and build new systems to accommodate how are we going to get all this work done. So part of my job was, as I mentioned, creating the safety protocols, but also creating new mechanisms for funneling volunteers into garden shifts, which we didn't really have before, and creating some sort of mechanism for food deliveries, and just kind of like having to build those processes while also maneuvering our way through them. And it was kind of a whirlwind, but what else are you going to do, and so we had to adapt and we had to be flexible, and there was a lot of space for innovation, and that's what we did. So the pandemic, things have sort of stabilized out. Every single garden has its own garden captain, as you know, and they manage their own crew of volunteers. So now it's, gardens are running, like everybody's sort of managing their own gardens again. At the same time, we were completely redeveloping one of our gardens into a children's garden. That was my big passion project this spring, based on the principles of horticulture therapy. So now we've got a new sort of outdoor classroom and playground as a garden, which has been a really fun experience. And there was a lot of skill building that was involved in that, practically, like I learned how to build things and install an irrigation system, but also just relationship building and communicating and working with people from all kinds of backgrounds, just sort of on the fly.
So as your year of service has wound to a close, what's next? Like, how are you going to take this and keep it and move with it, grow with it? What happens next? Now that you did all these fantastic, awesome, wonderful, and innovative things, what's next? What's the encore?
Yeah. Well, in mid-September, I'm moving to Germany and I'm starting a master's program in environmental governance. So that is like, in a nutshell, those are my next steps. And that'll be working with people from all over the world in a program that will teach us how to create systems change for climate action, and to, build more sustainable, like, worlds, basically governance. It deals with like municipal level sustainability measures to like intergovernmental agreements on climate change. But I think two of the huge, like, I mean, it's hard to say what my main takeaways from this year are, because it's been so like personally and professionally transformative.
So I'm going to interject one physical takeaway that you have.
About this year? Yeah, this was a really touching gift that one of the board members, one of the vestry members, gave to me at the end of my year. And it was so moving. This is a picture of the church, of the front of St. Mark's and St. John's. And she wrote this really beautiful inscription in the back. And of course, I burst into tears when I received it. So this is coming with me to Germany, just sort of carrying with me the reminders of my year of service. But, it's also kind of like an emblem of the relationships and of the community that I was able to join and really feel wholeheartedly welcomed by, and really like I was working alongside them and with them. and not, you know, like it's a year of service, but you know, it's for them, but it's, you know, we everything I did, you know, I was trying to do in tandem with other people.
So it seems like, yes, you gave a lot, but you also got a lot out of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. This, as I said, it was incredibly transformative, you know, on personal, professionally. I'm very grateful for this year, and not only to St. Mark's and St. John's and the community, and, you know, all of the relationships and all of the skills that I was able to build, but also to the Rochester Youth Year cohort and to the team, for personal and professional support as well. You know, we had monthly trainings and monthly meetings, and we checked in on each other, and, you know, we had that community. It was like 15, 17 best friends, you know, from like that I gained in August of last year that I still have now. And that's coming with me too. That's not going anywhere. So, yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say before we conclude this interview, which has been always a pleasure and very, very informative?
Yeah, it's always great talking with you, Leslie. You know, oh man, I really should have thought about this before, because I feel like I could talk about this forever. I mean, I think this program is so incredibly beneficial. The Rochester Youth Year program, the Vista program, the work that is happening in Beechwood is so inspiring. And I'm really excited to see what my successor does, what E.D.E.N does with this, because it's all about stewardship. That was one of my biggest lessons this spring, and from working in the gardens, is that there, you know, there's no degree of ownership or possessiveness over the work that we're doing. It's all about, you know, contributing your own time and your energy to the work that's already being done, making it better, passing the torch, and like letting that continue to blossom through somebody else's passions and expertises. And yeah, I'm really thrilled. I'm really thrilled to be able to like to see that continue, you know.
I'm loving the joy that's coming off of you as you talk about this. It's just making it so much better.
Oh, I'm glad. It's true. It's genuine. So
Thank you for this interview. I'll conclude, and then we'll talk. This is an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and you know what? The one thing I will add, Leslie, is that the peach trees that you planted at St. Mark's and St. John's a couple years ago are now in full blossom, and the peaches are like this big, and they're gorgeous. So big thank you to you as well for leaving that legacy. I was inspired. We got some apple trees. They're going in at $11.99. And
oh, I can't wait. I'm gonna have to stop by there.
So yeah. So thanks to you as well.
Thank you for your time, Sofia. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.